Welcome to the First World War most ambitious rebranding effort. And forget tactical genius or strategic surprise. This particular battle was won thanks to a 500-year-old grudge and a breathtaking level of administrative incompetence. The enemy was broadcasting their secret plans in the military equivalent of shouting them through a megaphone. This is the story of Tannenberg, a conflict so soaked in glorious absurdity that it instantly became a German national epic. It became an epic despite having a name that was, geographically speaking, a lie, giving pedants a terminal aneurysm. The fighting and the massive encirclement that defined this glorious victory did not actually happen at Tannenberg. It happened 19 miles or 30 kilometers away, near a town called Allenstein. But the misnomer is the juicy part. For the German High Command, this was not just a 1914 engagement. It was a PR event 500 years in the making. Back in the 15th century, Poland and Lithuania were the undisputed regional power couple, handing Germans a crushing loss. They handed the ethnically German Teutonic Order a crushing, era-defining humiliation at the Battle of Grunwald. And what was the other name for that 15th century disaster? You guessed it, Tannenberg. The German aristocracy, it turns out, was playing the long game. A truly, ludicrously long game. When they finally got a chance to return the favor in 1914, they did not just want a victory. They wanted poetic justice. They demanded a historical callback, needing to erase 5 centuries of national embarrassment with a single do-over. This was the long-awaited climax of a 500-year-old revenge arc, proving the power of an institutionalized grudge. Talk about holding on to a receipt. And first, let us set the scene. It is 1914, and Europe is buzzing with naive excitement. Germany, in its infinite wisdom, finds itself in the classic, self-induced nightmare scenario of a two-front war. France is to the west, and the massive, lumbering Russian Empire is to the east. But German High Command had a plan. It was called the Schlieffen Plan, a masterpiece of battlefield arrogance that guaranteed 2 things. It promised swift victory in the west, and the subsequent eternal hatred of the Belgians. The strategy was brutally simple, possessing the elegance of a poorly constructed death trap. Deliver a lightning-fast knockout blow to France, then pivot the entire army eastward to deal with the Russian bear. How did the Germans expect to conquer all of France while the massive Russian Empire just watched? Simple. They were betting on Russian incompetence. And to be fair to the Germans, it was a pretty safe bet. The Russian steamroller was powered by good intentions and practically nothing else. The country was vast, the terrain rugged, and the industrial capacity staggering in its inadequacy. Mobilization was less a blitz and more a lethargic crawl, conducted by men wondering if they packed their lunch. The logistical problems were so profound, they were almost avant-garde. Take the railway system, for instance. Russian railway cars were built on a different gauge than Germany, meaning they could not use German track. Their entire logistical backbone was crippled by mismatched metal, creating a strategic catastrophe. This guaranteed that the Russian advance would slow to a glacial pace, moving supplies off the trains with horses. Their army was running on horsepower, while Germany was running on discipline and diesel. But the real cherry on this cake of dysfunction was communication and operational security was just a suggestion. The Germans had cracked their coded radio messages almost immediately, which was disappointing for the Russians. They went back to the drawing board and developed a brand new, highly complex cryptographic system. There was just one tiny problem. They found it impossibly difficult to actually distribute the new codebooks. They resorted to broadcasting their most sensitive strategic messages, troop movements and supply levels, uncoded. They sent battle plans and even complaints about the quality of the field rations in clear text over the radio. Imagine standing on a German hill, fiddling with a radio antenna, and hearing message from Second Army Command. We are currently moving our entire left flank towards the town of Soldina, and we need 4,000 rounds of ammunition. Please send them to coordinates 42. A supply depot is bare. Repeat, left flank, moving to Soldina. Good luck, comrades. The entire operational security strategy hinged on the desperate, childish hope that the Germans were not listening. Spoiler alert. The Germans were listening very intently, turning the Russian army into a military intelligence podcast. One German signal officer commented that the Russian broadcasts were so clear, you did not even need a dictionary. They were essentially receiving free, real-time updates on the enemy deployment morale and shopping list. It was the strategic equivalent of ordering a pizza over an army radio channel and being surprised when the enemy eats it. The Schlieffen plan was going to work brilliantly, provided the Russians behaved exactly as expected. What the Germans failed to account for was that the Tsar had covertly ordered a partial mobilization 3 days early. This meant that many of these troops conveniently assembled from the western reaches were already primed. Suddenly, the lumbering bear was wide awake, profoundly angry, and mobilizing with surprising speed. The Russian First Army, under General Paul von Rennenkampf, and the Second Army, led by General Samsonov, began marching. The Germans, still busy planning their victory parade in Paris, realized the Russian menace was here now. Panic ensued, and the Germans suffered a shocking defeat at Gumbinen in mid-August, making things look dire. Some members of the German High Command suggested completely abandoning all of East Prussia to the 500,000 Russians. Defending against them was the beleaguered German Eighth Army, mustering only around 200,000 men. In a move of sheer desperation, the Germans fired their commander and pulled a 66-year-old general out of retirement. Hindenburg was a legend, mostly because he was extremely tall and looked exactly like a general should look. To assist him, they assigned a brilliant but famously prickly chief of staff, General Erich Ludendorff. Hindenburg and Ludendorff arrived to find a situation that was rapidly spiraling into total defeat. They walked into headquarters ready for the worst, but were greeted by intelligence staff holding stacks of papers. Generals. The intelligence officer Max Hoffman announced, "We have received excellent news regarding the Russians." Ludendorff stared, asking if they captured a messenger, but Hoffman grinned, waving a decoded message. They broadcast it open air, uncoded, and they have essentially hired us as their external strategy consultants. Thanks to those helpful, uncoded Russian messages, a cunning strategy began to form for the German command. The Germans learned that Samsonov's Second Army and Rennenkampf First Army were not advancing as a unified wave. Crucially, they had become separated by the vast marshy Masurian lakes, and their coordination was non-existent. Samsonov's army was struggling after being forced to stop yet again for resupply, thanks to complex hardware. This separation was the golden opportunity, meaning the Germans could enact the timeless strategy of divide and conquer. They could throw the bulk of their forces at one army, destroy it completely, and then turn to face the other. They decided to focus their attention on Samsonov, advancing Second Army, which posed the more immediate threat. But the German strategic advantage was not just logistical or technological. It was also intensely personal. Max Hoffman knew something critical that few others realized regarding General Samsonov and General Rennenkampf. The two Russian commanders responsible for the entire operation absolutely despised one another. This was pure, unadulterated hatred. A blood feud dating back to the disastrous Russo-Japanese War in 1905. Hoffman, who had served as an observer in that same war, knew exactly how deep the hatred ran between them. He was planning to build a strategy around it, reasoning that Rennenkampf might delay his intervention. It was a strategy based on exploiting profound spite, and it was brilliant. So they sent a detachment south. General Hermann von François was sent to meet Samsonov, and he was, to put it mildly, a difficult man. He was a brilliant tactician, but he viewed orders from his superiors as useful starting points for a spirited debate. A smaller screening force was sent north toward Rennenkampf just to keep him busy and deter any heroic ideas. In late August, the German detachment sent south finally made contact with the Second Army of Samsonov. Luckily for the Germans, Samsonov's advance had been slowed to a crawl by that famously rough terrain. The Russian army was a vast sea of humanity, composed mostly of new, inexperienced, and often illiterate conscripts. The German rank and file were professional, disciplined products of rigorous Prussian military doctrine. The Russians possessed vast quantities of artillery, but much of it was clumped in inconvenient places. Germany bred disciplined, world-class commanders, while Russia, clinging to tradition, produced pampered sons. The Germans seemed to have luck on their side. Or perhaps it was just the audacity of General von François. Von François was ordered to attack Samsonov immediately, but he clearly believed orders were more like suggestions. He held back because he wanted to wait until his heavy artillery had arrived and was perfectly positioned. Ludendorff was fuming at the delay, but the savvy Max Hoffmann convinced his superiors to trust the man on the spot. This delay, a moment of insubordination, had an unintended, brilliant consequence for the German army. Samsonov, seeing the small German screening force retreating confidentially, assumed he had the upper hand. On August 27th, Hoffmann's trust was rewarded, and von François finally struck Samsonov's left flank in a surprise attack. The assault shattered the Russian lines and sent them into a panicked retreat. And then von François did it again. Having tasted blood, he once more completely disobeyed his direct orders and took his entire corps on a maneuver. He ventured much further east than he was supposed to, in a bold effort to personally encircle the Russian Second Army. By August 29th, von François and his men had caught Samsonov completely off guard with this audacious maneuver. Hindenburg and Ludendorff quickly made it the official plan, ordering a full, crushing encirclement of the Russians. Back at Russian headquarters, the Grand Duke finally ordered Rennenkampf to come to the aid of Samsonov. In a twist that shocked absolutely no one, Rennenkampf did not make it in time, and his advance was curiously slow. Whether this failure to rescue his hated rival was intentional personal spite or just incompetence is debated. Meanwhile, Samsonov was trapped, being attacked from all sides, but his command post gave him a tragically narrow view. All he could see was his army center column, which was bravely and futilely attacking what looked like a weak position. He had zero visibility of his flanks, which were at that very moment being brutally hit and folded in on themselves. Had he known the truth, he could have saved his army, but he did not. He was blind, and only a day later, it was over. The Russian Second Army, completely enveloped, broken, and starved of supplies, surrendered to the Germans. Over 92,000 Russians were taken prisoner, more than the entire 8th Army fighting strength, and 50,000 were killed. Samsonov, rather than face the humiliation of surrender and the certain wrath of the Tsar, wandered deep into the forest. He moved away from his staff and took his own life, so the victory was complete for the German forces. For his role in this stunning triumph, Paul von Hindenburg became a national hero and would soon be promoted. The Germans had not merely won a battle 19 miles outside Allenstein. They had erased a historic stain. They had achieved Tannenberg, and the First Army under Rennenkampf was now utterly exposed to the victors. The victorious Germans, brimming with confidence, were about to turn their attention north to the other army. They knew Rennenkampf had failed to save his comrade, and now it was his turn to face the music.